Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the League of Women Voters of Greater Peoria Board of Directors, the President, Connie Romanus. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the League of Women Voters of Greater Peoria Board of... Thank you.
Good morning and welcome to the League of Women Voters of Greater Peoria Rally, Shine on Democracy. The League of Women Voters was founded in 1920 by a group of dedicated women who fought hard for the right for suffrage. And just an aside, men have been welcomed in as members since 1975. So we enjoy all membership. The League is and always has been partisan, focusing on issues locally and nationally. The League does not support candidates nor political parties. It does support positions after thorough study and consensus. Today, more than ever, our democracy is threatened and is in crisis. In less than 100 days, we have seen the pillars of democracy jeopardized in all branches of our government: judicial, legislative, and executive. Our individual rights are jeopardized, and the rule of law is not protecting citizens and residents. The federal government is being dismantled department by department under the cover of reducing waste. Instead, it's leaving us vulnerable to lack of transparency, misinformation, and uncertainty for the future. On April 17th, 2025, the League of Women Voters of the United States CEO, Selena Stewart, issued the following statement in reflection on the first 60 days of the Trump administration, and I'm going to share that. If the past 60 days have made one thing clear, it's this: our democracy is facing a 5-alarm fire. The first 60 days of the Trump administration have been nothing short of an unprecedented, breathtaking assault on American democracy. From the pardoning of the January 6th perpetrators and the terrorizing of immigrant communities to the dismantling of crucial government agencies and the blatant flouting of court rulings to the erasing contributions of people of color, the Trump administration is waging a full-scale attack on all Americans. But no matter what they throw at us, we will not back down. Americans have proven we can overcome the toughest of circumstances together, and for over a century, the League has remained steadfast in our commitment to empowering the American people and defending our democracy. That's why we are heartened that Americans across the country of all ages and gender identities, races, and political persuasions are stepping up and making their voices heard and fighting back. With attacks on the rule of law and our democratic institutions staring us right in the face, it's going to take all of us, our collective voices and efforts to protect our democracy. We, the American people, must loudly condemn this administration for the abuse of power over the last 60 days. We must also call out the inaction from Congress that continues to allow executive overreach and blatant violation of our constitutional protections. As voters, we have the power to tell the president we will not be silent and to turn up the heat on our elected officials in Congress to remind them of their oath to the Constitution. Our democracy is too important to sit on the sidelines. We must continue to engage at all levels, including the local level, to hold our elected leaders accountable and make our needs known. There are hundreds of consequential local elections across the country this year, including Arizona, Florida, New York, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and other states. And it's important that citizens in those states are making an election plan, ensuring that at least 5 people they know are going to vote, and this is how we make our voice heard. To come a little closer to home, the Greater Peoria area is truly a microcosm of these United States of America. We have many religions and beliefs in our midst. We consist of diverse backgrounds and talents. We have come from immigrants, and we welcome immigrants into our communities. We work shoulder to shoulder. We travel freely across the globe for work, education, and leisure. From the festivals celebrating our heritage of many countries around the world, we have established roots in this country and have worked hard to take part in our democracy and thrive. We come from laborers, builders, and farmers. We have been the leading producer of alcohol, tractors, and perfected production of penicillin and ethanol. We have evolved into a truly STEM community that includes the arts. Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics has allowed us to develop a medical hub, not just for commercial health care, but also for educational experimental leadership. We have the National Center for Agricultural Research, or the Ag Lab, as it's more commonly known, the University of Illinois College of Medicine, Bradley University, Illinois Central College, and business incubators. We have 2 major hospitals, as well as the Regional Veterans Administration Medical Center. Our VA Center attracts patients and service members from around the state. Our public libraries and schools offer a wide range of services, including special needs. These freedoms and services are threatened by cuts in personnel and funding, and the future of the services that we rely on is in jeopardy. Democracy is not just a system of government, it is the power of the people. It begins with us, our voices and our votes. At a time when democracy is under threat, we're asking you to come together and defend it. As we gather today, we want to focus our strength as citizens and listen to our speakers and identify action steps that each of us can take to make a difference. After our speakers finish their presentations, we'll have time for Q&A. And some of you may have picked up cards at the registration table, but we also have several people in the aisles with cards. So be thinking about questions that you would like to ask a specific speaker or on a specific topic that they are presenting. And if you would, write either the speaker's first name or the topic at the head of your card. That will help us get them to the right person. And now I think we'll be getting underway with our speakers.
Please welcome from the League of Women Voters of Illinois, Vice President and Co-Chair of the Issues and Advocacy Committee, Kathy Cortez.
Good morning, Peoria. I, as a proud League member, I'm very honored to be here to speak with you today. Speaking of 5 alarm fires, my topic will be the SAVE Act. As you know, the League of Women Voters, we believe every citizen should be protected in their right to vote, and that our electoral systems encourage participation and enhance representation of all voters. It is not a League position that non-citizens, under our existing laws, should be able to vote in U.S. elections. So, why do we oppose the SAVE Act? We oppose it because it imposes inequitable economic and administrative burdens and creates unnecessary barriers to voting participation that will disenfranchise large portions of our population. The SAVE Act requires in-person presentation of proof of citizenship, and it requires it at an election office. It presumes, contrary to any evidence, that voters have passports, original documentation such as birth certificates, marriage certificates, divorce papers, death certificates, what have you, that women may need. And it assumes that if we don't, we can afford to get them. It also eliminates common sense laws, particularly here in Illinois, that are supported by advancements in technology, such as online voter registration, automated voter registration at the DMV. So we oppose this bill, not because we think it's okay for non-citizens to vote. We oppose it because it's not okay to impair the rights of American citizens to vote. So who are the voters that are going to be... who are the voters that are likely to be impacted or, in my judgment, sacrificed? They're individuals with limited access to transportation, including the elderly who no longer drive, homeless individuals, individuals who have experienced eviction or maybe a catastrophe and have lost their records, some members of the military and Native American citizens whose IDs may not meet the full requirements of the bill. These citizens will be among those for whom the barriers to register to vote are simply too high. And while the bill also provides that states have some flexibility in addressing the needs of those who are disabled, it doesn't let us know what's going to be okay. There are also voters who are low-income or modest-income individuals who can neither afford to procure the documentation, nor can they afford to take a day off of work in order to go register in person. And the bill certainly places a larger burden on women than men to produce citizen verifying documentation. And especially some of us older ladies like me, 80% of us opted to change our names when we were married, so our identification when we were born does not match our identification today. So we oppose the SAVE Act because it does not prioritize preserving voter rights of the American citizen. Instead, it asks us to sacrifice voter rights of many of us in exchange for keeping few non-citizens from voting. We oppose it because denying the right to vote for even one American citizen is too many. The SAVE Act would have us believe that we can't have both voting rights and clean registration rolls. Why does Congress think we need to compromise? Surely we can strengthen our voter rolls and protect everyone's right to vote at the same time. We live in a time of unprecedented technology and data resources. This is America. We put a man on the moon. I think Congress can figure this out. There is overwhelming consensus for upholding both citizens' rights and having clean voter rolls. So then, with such broad consensus, how in God's name did we end up with this legislation? First, I see a failure on the part of some representatives to appreciate what's really important to the American public. Our constitutional rights as Americans and as human beings are bedrock. Creating a law that would diminish the rights of even one individual or subset of individuals ought to be a non-starter for all of us. Second, the voter mandate on this issue is either being misunderstood or misrepresented. I have no doubt that a large percentage of the US population has reached out and made a demand that we get non-citizens off of the voter rolls. But I doubt that what the American people were asking Congress to do was to drop a bomb on an anthill and take out half the neighborhood with it. Do I believe that there's maybe an 80-year-old woman somewhere out here in Illinois who no longer drives, who's thinking about maybe moving so that she would actually have to re-register to vote, right? Because she's maybe moving into assisted living or something like that. Do I doubt that at some point she wrote her congressman and demanded that we get this problem fixed? No. Do I doubt that some hourly wage workers were equally adamant that we have non-citizens off of our voter rolls? No. But do I doubt that those people said, you know what? Let us go ahead and sacrifice my right to vote. I'm willing to not be able to vote so that you can do that. I don't think there's an American citizen that I know out there that would do that, and no one should do that. I will close with this thought. We as voters and citizens are not divided on citizen and only citizen voting in the United States. We are united in this. But the SAVE Act itself is what has served to divide us. It's time to tell U.S. senators that the House got it wrong. It's time to tell them that we won't be forced to choose between clean voter rolls and our right to vote. It's time to say we need both and that we expect them to deliver. So please help us out and do that. Thank you.
Now to speak on immigration, please welcome Laurie Bergner.
Good morning. I am delighted to be here today to talk about this important issue. I'm on the board of two wonderful organizations, the League of Women Voters of McLean County and the Immigration Project. I don't know if you've heard of it. It gives legal help to immigrants all over the state, south of I-80, because Chicago has its own help. And that includes Peoria. We do work with Peoria. So it's both legal help and also social services. And so today I'm here to speak about the immigration crisis in our country and our communities. Immigration has been a growing problem for decades. There's been no new immigration legislation for over 30 years, even though everyone knows, how broken our immigration system is. Providing no reasonable steps to legally admit immigrants has led to too many coming in illegally. And this in turn has led to more negative views of immigrants, leading to voter support during the campaign for promises to deport millions of immigrants. The administration has begun deporting not only undocumented immigrants, but even those who are documented, with work and student visas and green cards. Some just because they acted on their constitutional rights to protest the war in Gaza. The first thing that the administration did was to cancel immediately the app that Biden had created to try to deal with the border system, which had successfully allowed people who were leaving repressive regimes to register for an interview with an agent at the border and apply for lawful entry. It was working. And cutting it off left immigrants with no possibility of applying for legal asylum hearing, no matter what they were fleeing from. The administration has also stripped the temporary protected status, or TPS, of immigrants from countries such as Haiti, Afghanistan, and Venezuela. Immigrants that are here legally because of repressive regimes, because of violence and events like earthquakes. By suddenly revoking their TPS status, they have gone from being here legally to being told they are now here illegally. And hear this, all federally funded programming for unaccompanied minors was recently ended by executive order. So what has been happening across the country? Raids, detentions, and deportations. The administration, who initially insisted they would deport only those with criminal records, has been detaining and deporting many immigrants without any such record, or a record of only minor civil offenses. Promises are to carry out the largest deportation operation in American history, and it surely is. Deporting millions quickly remains the goal, even though there's no place to hold them, and there aren't nearly that many criminal records, many with criminal records. So instead, ICE has been looking for and detaining immigrants for what seems to be little or no reason, and many have just disappeared into detention centers in Louisiana, where they have no access to lawyers or to phoning their families, the families may not even know where they are. An executive order now allows ICE to enter schools, churches, and other places previously seen as safe, previously were safe. This has sown terror for immigrants, many of whom are scared to let their children go to school or even to go outside their homes. Some of the most horrifying events are the deportations of over 200 Venezuelan immigrants, many of whom had TPS status until now, to terrible prisons in El Salvador, charging them with being members of a violent gang. But for the vast majority, there's little or no evidence of their gang membership. In fact, I don't know if you read the article recently, but the New York Times had a long investigation of who were these people that were deported and why. And the Homeland Security has a way of measuring whether they are actually gang members, and they give them many points if they have tattoos, even though that gang has no tattoos. They don't ask their members to have tattoos, and yet they were told, because you have these tattoos, it shows you're a member of these gangs. So it's a totally invalid test of their gang membership. Other immigrants from Asian countries were deported to Panama, where they did not speak the language and they were just stuck there. Another issue has been revoking student visas, often for no discernible reason. Here in Central Illinois, many of our universities say that a handful of students have had their student visas revoked. The Immigration Project is aware of over 300 individuals whose student visas have been revoked in downstate Illinois. The universities are all trying to help their students respond to and navigate this. Although no reason has been given for revoking them, there seems to be a pattern that they have had some minor criminal record or non-criminal civil record, a very, very small misdemeanor, for instance, or something like that in their past, and sometimes even an arrest with no conviction on their record. The most recent news is the arrest of a judge in Wisconsin for aiding an immigrant to escape when ICE agents entered her courtroom and would not leave when she told them to. The decision to charge a sitting state court judge is a major escalation in the Trump administration's battle with local authorities over deportations. The administration has demanded, under threat of investigation or prosecution, that local officials not impede federal efforts to deport millions of undocumented immigrants, and the arrest sent a message that the administration intends to take a harder line with those that do. Here in Illinois, we are so fortunate that we have a state government that stands strongly against aiding the federal administration's actions against undocumented immigrants. Yeah. So what can we do? This is such an awful list. I could have gone on for hours with all the things, right? This was a really hard thing to write because there was so much to say. So what can we do, right? We need to end with that, right? And I would say that the first thing I want to say is we cannot give up. We cannot hand the administration a win on these things. And I think one of the biggest things we can do is protest. I think that rallies, letters to the editor, calls to all of our legislators are just essential. And I heard a very interesting podcast that said that the court system is so major as a backstop, and they need to know that the public is behind them. And the protests show that. And you know what? We have protests all over the nation, and even local ones. We don't have to go to Chicago. Even in our local communities, it's so important for these protests to continue. And they need to continue and continue and continue. Some other things you can do is to get connected locally, because that's where our power is. Threats to immigrants' rights are already impacting our community. So find some immigrant rights organizations in your community, the League of Women Voters, the Immigration Project, and others. And if you're involved with pro-justice groups locally, make sure that you connect with these other immigrant groups. And then know your rights and the rights of others, because these may come up in terms of yourself, some of us, but certainly telling others what they need to know. And that includes the right to remain silent, to keep your door closed if ICE doesn't have a judge-signed warrant and comes to your door, and to speak to a lawyer. Share empowering materials that you can get through the Immigration Project, the League of Women Voters, National Partnership for New Americans. Put up flyers and share resources with your family, your community. If you do witness a raid, document, verify, and share. So if you see ICE in public, first of all, make sure it is ICE, and you can notice if it says ICE or U.S. Customs and Border Patrol, Border Protection on their uniforms or vehicles. And if they are, document. It's really important to document. Take out your phone. You have the right to take videos and pictures and do it. Do it and then share it, documenting the time, the date, and the exact location. Share it. And finally, contact your representatives, state and national. They need to know that we are against all of this. The League believes that diverse voices enhance our democracy. We continue to support fair treatment under the law and immigration policies that stop the separation of families and provides paths to citizenship. Let's keep our protests going.
Please welcome the chair of WCBU Community Advisory Board, Becky Doubleday.
Good morning. Thanks to all of you for being here. Yes, I'm Becky Doubleday. I'm the proud chair of the WCBU Community Advisory Board. For those of you that don't know, WCBU is a listener-supported, non-commercial public radio station, and so much more. For the last 55 years, since 1970, the station has been a national public radio affiliate, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 365 days a year from the Bradley University campus. And now we come, thank you. That's an achievement. I could go on for another hour about how wonderful that's been, but I'm not. But now we come to today. The Trump administration, as many of you probably know, want to defund public media, meaning NPR, National Public Radio, and the Public Broadcasting Service, or commonly known as PBS. This is all part of a broader plan to not only extract money from long-standing organizations and programs, but also to ultimately cripple and dismantle those very structures. You're seeing it practically across the board in Washington, with a new body blow to our democracy being delivered on a daily basis. But don't take my word for it. About public media, the British newspaper The Guardian writes, "It was entirely predictable that Donald Trump would go after public media in America. Harming the reality-based press in every form, whether public or private, is a central part of his playbook for controlling the political narrative as he moves the country toward an authoritarian model of government." The Guardian went on to say that Congress should continue to provide funding, not because NPR and PBS are perfect, but because on balance, they are a critical part of the fact-based news ecosystem necessary to democratic self-governance. That's especially true at a time when media companies are increasingly owned by large corporations or by individual billionaires, all with their own financial agendas. Disney owns ABC News. Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post. Warner Brothers owns CNN. Most newspapers are now owned by big chains or by private equity companies. And don't think that for-profit media is escaping this dystopian nightmare. Just this week, the longtime executive producer of 60 Minutes said he is resigning, reciting encroachments on his journalistic independence. 60 Minutes. So what makes public media different than most commercial media and in need of our preservation? For starters, they correct their errors. Wow, think of that. Which is a litmus test for legitimate news organizations. Second, they continue to have an ombudsman, or known as a public editor, to serve as the audience representative and to consider complaints. Many news organizations, including the Washington Post, have eliminated the role, which at one time was very commonplace, especially for larger news organizations. NPR has said, "We serve the public interest. It's not just in our name, it's our mission." Across the country, locally owned public media stations represent a proud American tradition of public-private partnership for our shared common good. NPR receives only about 1% of its funding directly from the federal government. However, member stations like WCBU tend to be much more dependent on federal money. Some communities, like those on Native American lands, for example, are increasingly becoming news deserts, as are many other areas, especially rural areas in our country. So as the need for, as The Guardian called it, reality-based press becomes more and more important, those communities which are most in need become just that much more vulnerable. Congress allocated $535 million for public media funding for the current fiscal year. That amount was affirmed in a recent stopgap bill passed by the House and the Senate. This funding is typically approved by Congress on a 2-year cycle, in large part to insulate it from political pressures. Congress has already appropriated funds through September 30th, 2027. So that sounds like good news, right? Not so much, not this year. As first reported by NPR, the Trump administration has drafted a memo to Congress outlining its intent to immediately end nearly all funding for public media, including NPR and PBS. Not to end it in 2027, but to end it now. The memo, which the administration plans to send to Congress when it reconvenes from recess on Monday, this Monday, April 28th, will open a 45-day window in which the House and the Senate can either approve this rescission or the clawback of this funding that would put an immediate stop to federal monies for public media. In all, Trump is expected to propose rescinding $1.1 billion, or 2 years of funding, for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which is a legally, congressionally chartered, independent, nonprofit organization that in turn partially funds NPR and PBS. This action comes after the chiefs of NPR and PBS were called before a House Oversight and Government Reform Subcommittee in late March. The panel alleged the network's news coverage is biased against conservatives. NPR said in a statement, eliminating funding for CPB would have a devastating impact on American communities across the nation that rely on public radio for trusted local and national news, culture, life-saving emergency alerts, and public safety information. So what can we do? Support public media. And I'm not intending for this to sound like a pledge pitch, and I never wanted this speech to do that, but here we go. WCBU just did have a very successful fund drive, thanks to the news getting out about the threat to public media, I think in large part. Thank you if you're a member. If you're a one-time member, think about becoming a sustaining member. This will allow the station the ability to budget and plan better, especially for staffing. And the staffing of the news department is the lifeblood of the station and what keeps people in this community informed. For all WCBU has to offer, go to wcbu.org. There's a lot of good information out there and can answer many of your questions. Or download the NPR app. Next, promote public media. Share stories from WCBU on your social media. Talk about WCBU and what it means to you with your friends, colleagues, and neighbors. Contact your legislators. Let them know how you feel. An easy way to do this for public media is to go to protectmypublicmedia.org. That's protectmypublicmedia.org. They'll walk you through all the steps. No one else can do this for us. Democracy is for people, is for the people, and by the people. You are the people, we are the people, you are the public in public media. Thank you.
Please welcome the manager of the Peoria Area Food Bank, Wayne Cannon.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for being part of this very important panel. And I'm here to talk about another very important topic, food insecurity. Food insecurity. Food insecurity is not having enough food to live a healthy, nutritious life, okay? An example, I was at the Shell gas station on the south side of Peoria early in the morning, and a car pulled up next to me and had a bunch of kids in there, about 6 or 7 little kids in there. And the mother got out and went inside. I went inside as well to take care of my business. Upon paying for my purchases, the mother came with a gallon of fruit punch and 6 honey buns. So she paid for her stuff with a SNAP card and got in the car. Now those children will not be hungry. So that's not a hunger problem, but that's a food insecurity problem. See, once the sugar rush dies down, those kids are gonna be bouncing off the wall. You know, the limited amount of dollars on the SNAP card, or probably more importantly, the way the mother might not have managed the SNAP benefits, or she needed a new tire on the car, or she needed to pay her rent, or she had just enough money to get to the end of the month to take care of her children. But that's what I wanted to put you guys in, just in a framework of food insecurity. This month, the House GOP budget resolution passed with proposed cuts threatening programs like Veteran Affairs, Medicaid, and SNAP. It included a $230 billion cut over the next 10 years. I'd like a little feedback on some of the programs they're proposing to cut. Do you think we can afford that big a cut to our SNAP programs? Yes or no? What about our WIC program? No. Temporary Emergency Food Assistance Program. No. The National School Lunch Program. No. And the Summer Food Service Program. No. Now these cuts, if they do take effect on the federal level, are gonna trickle down to the states. There's all kinds of proposals. And let me also say this. The resolution passed with a framework. Now, there's a framework. And they gave each department things they need to do. And of course, they told the U.S. Department of Agriculture, you need to cut $230 billion. Now, how they do that is important, is critical. So do they cut SNAP, which is the biggest entity in that program? Probably so. Do they cut the thrifty food plan? Is how they figure out where these cuts are coming from? Do they cut the amount of dollars that come into our communities that's going to have effect on all the local merchants in our communities in and of itself? Just a little bit about the economic impact of the dollars that come in. For every dollar that comes into the Peoria community, every SNAP dollar, that turns into $1.79 in economic activity. SNAP provides benefits to vulnerable populations. And of course, the long-term benefits of providing SNAP for individuals, as we talked about the young folks growing up with the honey buns and the fruit punch, that turns into diabetes, hypertension, obesity. These are direct correlations for cuts in the nutrition programs in our communities. So what can we do? You know, as we talk about what goes on in Washington, we talk about the partisanship, which kind of led us to get there. In order for us to fix this, we really need to reduce that. one of the key factors, especially in the food industry, and especially in the emergency food industry, is we need to talk to our Republican and Democratic legislators, even if they're not directly tied to us, the effects this is going to have on our neighbors. We talk about us at the grassroots level. We need to advocate. We need to make noise. We have to protest. We need to tell stories. But it's critical. It's critical that we, as much as we can, take the partisanship out of this conversation. As we talk about the immigration issues, we talk about public broadcasting. All these things are connected. All these things are connected. You know, to get the word out about food insecurities, public broadcasting, the community word, so many issues and concerns that you cannot hear anywhere but in local newspapers. And we don't need to talk, like I say, I'm here to talk about food insecurity. There's a $230 billion proposed cut that's going to affect all of us. It's a pleasure to talk to you guys this Saturday morning as you guys come out to address these issues that are affecting and concerning to all of us. Just thank you for your time and your thoughts.
Please welcome the Executive Director of the Arts Partnership of Central Illinois, Dr. Mae Gilliland Wright. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for including the arts and humanities in today's important discussions. So as mentioned, I serve as Executive Director of Arts Partners of Central Illinois, and for 25 years, Arts Partners has worked every day to support and strengthen the arts across Greater Peoria, because we know that a thriving arts and culture sector strengthens every part of our community, from education to health to economic development. Today I want to speak to you about something deeply urgent: protecting federal arts and humanities funding at the national, state, and the local levels. The effects of these funding decisions are already beginning to ripple through organizations across the country and right here in Illinois. Earlier this month, the newly created Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, acted to strip both the National Endowment for the Humanities, the NEH, and the Institute for Museum and Library Services, the IMLS, of funding and staff. For the NEH, that meant a 75% reduction of their staff. They were put on administrative leave. For the IMLS, all staff were put on administrative leave. It was effectively just gutted overnight. These agencies were fully funded by Congress through the end of the fiscal year, yet administrative action has left them unable to carry out their missions. For Illinois, this has had immediate and serious consequences. Illinois Humanities, our trusted partner for distributing NEH dollars across the state, has lost roughly 1/3 of its operating budget, which is about $2 million. So what does that mean? That means less support for free community reading and discussion programs, less funding for rural museums and historical societies, and fewer resources for educational initiatives, including efforts to commemorate the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. Meanwhile, IMLS, again, this is the federal agency that supports museums and libraries, has effectively been shut down, putting critical services at risk, especially in rural and underserved areas. And now, all signs point to the National Endowment for the Arts, the NEA, being the next target. It's important to understand the scale of what is at stake. Together, the NEA and NEH each represent just 0.003% of the federal budget. That is 0.003 of 1%. IMLS is just 0.0046, or just a little less than 0.005 of 1%. Yet these small investments have massive returns. More than 150 billion in economic activity from the arts sector alone, supporting over 2.6 million jobs nationwide. In 2023, arts and culture contributed 1.2 trillion to the US economy, representing 4.2% of the nation's entire GDP. That's more than agriculture, mining, transportation, and even outdoor recreation. Think about that. The creative economy is not just thriving, it's growing faster than the economy overall, and it's giving the United States a $36.8 billion trade surplus in arts-related exports. Now, in Illinois, arts and culture contributed $37.39 billion to our state's economy last year and supported over 226,000 jobs. Here in Greater Peoria, the impact is real and measurable. According to the Arts and Economic Prosperity Report that was conducted right here in 2022, our nonprofit art and culture sector generates $9.4 million in local economic activity. It generates $1.9 million in tax revenue for local, state, and federal governments, and 86% of residents who were surveyed said that arts and culture events gave them pride in their neighborhood or community. That's huge when you think about it, especially during a time when we are so divided. At Arts Partners, we see firsthand how the arts enrich the Greater Peoria region through performances and exhibitions, and also by driving tourism, supporting local businesses, strengthening education, and fostering community pride. Yet without federal funding, these benefits are at risk. And it's not just arts nonprofits that face serious challenges. The entire nonprofit sector is impacted. The Urban Institute reports that between 60 and 80% of nonprofits nationwide receiving government grants will face immediate financial shortfalls if grants are withdrawn. And here in Peoria County, that number is 66%. Locally, at the Peoria Public Library, federal grants have made it possible to buy cutting-edge technology and give students on the South Side hands-on access to 3D printers and virtual reality systems, experiences they may not otherwise have had. We look at Morton, just across the river. The library estimates that their residents borrowed nearly $800,000 worth of materials in 2024. But that was from a budget that could only afford $100,000 if they had to do this by themselves. So when we lose support for institutions like IMLS, it's not just about buildings or books, it's about real opportunities disappearing for our kids, our neighborhoods, and for our future. If we do not act, we risk losing crucial arts initiatives, community storytelling projects, veteran-centered art therapy, and the local economic boost from cultural tourism. So it's important to remember, support for the arts and humanities doesn't have to be a partisan issue. I'm about to quote former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee, a conservative Republican, a fiscal conservative at that, and I bet you didn't have this on your bingo card for a talk about the arts and culture. But he wrote the following in a 2017 opinion piece for the Washington Post, quote, "I'm for cutting waste and killing worthless programs. I am not for cutting and killing the hope and help that come from creativity." Defending the arts and humanities funding is about investing in opportunity, strengthening our economy, and sustaining the programs that build vibrant, resilient communities. Earlier this week, Dr. John Hasse, who is Curator Emeritus of American Music at the Smithsonian, presented a lecture at the Peoria Riverfront Museum about how the arts are more important now than ever. He invited all of us to imagine a world in which we had no art, no favorite songs playing as you drive down the highway, no movies that make you smile or cry when you least expect it, no books that change your minds. Now, art will always be a critical part of our human experience, just as curiosity drives scientific breakthroughs. We're human, so we're going to continue to produce art. But when we stop investing in the arts and humanities, we start to lose something essential in our communities, our schools, and in ourselves. We risk a future where students miss out on the developmental benefits that come from arts education, where members of our community lose access to the kinds of creative experiences that help them grow, dream, and connect with one another. The arts don't just entertain us, they educate us, they heal us, and they bring us together. We can't take that for granted. So, here's the action item. If you want to help ensure a future for the NEH, IMLS, and NEA, here's what you can do. You can contact your representatives, ask them to defend the NEA and restore funding to IMLS and NEH, and reaffirm Congress's authority to steward these essential agencies. You can go to artsalliance.org. You can set artsalliance.org and ilhumanities.org. ilhumanities.org. Support local organizations, donate, volunteer, attend events, go to local museums and libraries. You can follow Arts Partners on our socials and visit us at artspartners.net. Stay informed, spread the word, share factual information, have these conversations with others because it really matters. Join advocacy efforts, whether through professional organizations, community groups, or as individuals. We can remind policymakers that arts and humanities are not luxuries, they are core to who we are as a community and as a nation. So I want to emphasize as I finish here, standing up for the arts and humanities isn't a partisan issue, it's a community issue. It is an economic development issue. It's about honoring our history. It's about investing in our future. It's about protecting the programs and experiences that connect and inspire all of us. When we invest in the arts and humanities, we invest in vibrant, resilient communities in Greater Peoria, across Illinois, and across the nation. Thank you.
Thank you to all of our speakers for being here today, for sharing their thoughts, their ideas, and the impact that a variety of topics and issues have on our community. I want to also thank the Universalist Unitarian Church, Reverend Jennifer Ines, for allowing us to hold this rally here. Also, Melissa, the secretary, Jean, and all of the staff here for helping us make this successful and possible. Now we're going to take a few timing is everything. We're going to take some time to ask our speakers some of the questions that you have presented or that others have posed for us, and then I will talk about some other things that we can be doing. Mr. Cannon, I'm going to have you come up first, and you have you can speak from there, if you don't mind. I think from where you are. Yeah, and I'll stay up here. I'm going to ask the questions, so yeah. I think the mic should be in the back. You've got it on? Okay. I'm gonna, so the first question is, what can we do to help mitigate the effects of these cuts for food insecurity?
One of the major things that we can do is definitely interact, contact our neighbors, have our neighbors contact their representative in their legislative, whether it's the local, the state level, and definitely the federal level. We have to get together and not as individuals, as groups. We need to definitely represent. And there's one of those quotes that came up that said that there is more power in the people than the people in power. And we just need to make sure that we remember that. And if I could just say, you know, it is true. You know, sometimes you really need to step out of that comfort zone, that little niche that we think that we're in, and kind of step out, and you'd be surprised how much friends and support and commonality we have.
Wait, stop waving your arms and hold the microphone.
Yeah. There you go. And of course, Ms. Parks is in the room.
And Wayne, the next question is for you, and then we'll have a question on immigration. So what will be the local impact of these proposed cuts?
Okay. No, of course, the thing is, these are proposed cuts. So this is proposed effects. So they say that if you take $23 billion out of the system over the next 10 years, the immediate effects would be about 1 million people in Illinois wouldn't receive less, 1 million less people in Illinois would receive SNAP benefits. That would, and those still receiving SNAP will receive a 25% reduction. There's a proposal to block grant all the SNAP dollars, the USDA dollars, TFAP dollars to the states, which would create about a $440 million shortfall in the state budget, meaning that the state budget has to cut $440 million from here. That will affect the roads, the schools, law enforcement, the court system, and so on and so on and so on. So those are some of the immediate effects that would take place locally.
Thank you. And Laurie, we've got a couple of questions for you on immigration. Can you address the new ICE rule that they can enter your home without a warrant? This happened yesterday in this individual's area. And also, can they talk about what legally can a person do? You touched on that in your presentation, but could you address that?
Yeah, I'm not sure I have a good answer for that. It is illegal for them to come in to your home without your permission unless they have a judge order from the judge saying that they can do that. So I don't know what's going to happen if they just push their way in, but you can say no and close the door, at least theoretically. And hopefully this is not yet a police state, so I don't know what to tell you about that, but that's what the legal system says so far.
And the next question, Laurie, is there some sort of international group that can try to interview with Garcia and some of the other deportees that were unjustly held in foreign prisons?
Is there an international group that
would deal with some of the immigration, like, for example, the individuals who were taken out of the country and imprisoned? Are there any groups that can affect the rights for those people or interview them?
Yeah, I mean, so far our own congressmen have gone over there. There are a lot of international groups. I don't know if they are doing that now or not, but there's International Rescue Committee. There's the UN whatever it's called, Refugee Committee. I don't know if they are yet doing anything, but they could. So there definitely, I think, is a lot of concern internationally as well.
Thank you. Kathy, this next question is for you. Is there anything that our Illinois representatives can do to help get the word to Congress?
I believe there is, yes. You're very lucky in Peoria. You have very good, committed representation here in the area. You may not always agree with everything they do, but they are good and committed representatives. And those representatives also have relationships on both sides of the aisle with your U.S. Congresspeople. So when you reach out to them, you can reach out and say, I need your help. I need your help to go to our U.S. representatives, either individually or as a coalition, and let them know that we didn't mean we are willing to sacrifice our right to vote to get the voter rolls fixed. That needs to be made clear, and we need you to go in and ask for them to either start from scratch or make serious amendments to the new law before their senators pass it. So they can have an impact. You need to ask, and you need to be really clear what your ask is.
Thank you. And Becky, I've got a couple of questions, got several.
Thank you.
Actually. The first one is, public media often gets tagged with being elitist and having a liberal bias. Are those fair descriptions?
Well, I would say it depends on who you're asking and what you're looking at. As you know, we've become such a bifurcated society in so many ways. It's black or it's white. And all of these things, especially when you're looking at media, tend to fall along a spectrum, right? And with the ever-widening media landscape, it's even more of a spectrum now. But if you go out and you do some research and look and ask the Google, is this organization, where does it fall? There are organizations that will put them on a graph for you. And NPR falls, if you're looking at it here, they do fall, I think they call it slightly left or something of that nature. So yes, it's not straight up and down. It's not 50-50. The thing that is the program though, so that's the organization as a whole. The program, NPR Now, which is just straight up news reporting, it does fall right at 12 o'clock on just the facts, ma'am. This is just what's been going on. There's no editorial there.
Okay, and stay there.
Okay, I'm staying.
So NPR, as well as PBS, one of the few stations to inform us on issues such as the Israeli-Gaza war. Have you been told to limit have been told to limit the information regarding what has been going on in Gaza due to our own country's support position?
So if is the question, do we know if NPR has been told to limit their, that I don't know. I don't know if they've been told or instructed by the government to do that. I don't know that. And I would expect that if that were the case, that would not change the reporting. I think that's why NPR and other nonprofit news organizations, there's a concerted effort to defund because of the balance that NPR always endeavors to strike when covering issues. So I don't have any inside information on that.
And the last question is, does local financial support of public media stay local?
Yes. Yes, so in fundraising, it's a complicated kind of thing. I was going to go into that more in the speech, but it's boring, but it is relevant right now. So the Corporation for Public Broadcasting was formed in 1970 to fund, so that the government wasn't directly funding member stations or the NPR or PBS organizations directly, but that money comes through the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. The monies largely that are raised here locally, they will either go, most of it, for staff and hiring and being able to fulfill local news and information commitments, or sometimes to purchase programming too. So let's say, and I know I'm bringing this up because it's the only one I can think of right now, but Car Talk, okay? So if you've been around a long time, right? I remember the days when we didn't have Car Talk in Peoria. And I'd go to Chicago, and I'd turn on, NPR, and I'd hear Car Talk, and I loved it. So that was on for many, many years. But that was a purchase program, and it wasn't here in Peoria because it couldn't afford it. It didn't have the member support. Then it was supported, then it's not on anymore, but neither are the boys. I think one of them has passed away. So, but that's an example of how local money would be used on something that is heard locally, but not produced locally.
Click and Clack, the Tappet Brothers.
Thank you. Thank you. Right. NPR is not just doom and gloom. And yeah, that's another thing, just real quick. If you want to connect with younger people about NPR, talk to them about tiny desk concerts, okay? Right? They know that. My son did. He's like, yeah, I love those tiny, they're great. I'm like, that's NPR. What? You mean what you and Dad have on in the kitchen all day? Yeah, that's it. It's the same thing. So there's
Thank you, Becky.
a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Dr. Gilliland Wright has the next question. Looking ahead, if the NEA is also targeted for cuts, what would be the most immediate risks for local art organizations like Art Partners and their ability to serve the community?
Great question. Yeah, so I would say the majority of our arts organization and culture organizations do receive funding from the state, from the Illinois Arts Council, and they receive funding from the NEA. I've been in talks with the Illinois Arts Council and Arts Alliance Illinois about this, and it is a real concern because they're trying to figure out what would those impacts be. We know we will have them. And for smaller organizations, a cut of $10,000 could mean the difference between existing and not existing. Now, my goal is that that will not happen, of course, right? We're going to try to make sure that we have no organization go dark here in the Peoria area. How can you help with that? One thing you could do is we're trying to make sure that the state is funding Illinois Arts Council. And so I'm going down to Springfield this week to talk to our local representatives. If you feel so moved, give them a shout and say, hey, please make sure we at least sustain the level of arts funding we have in Illinois, which, by the way, per capita, we spend less on the arts than states like Missouri and Alabama. So we still have room to grow. And nothing against Missouri, that's where my family's from, love Missouri, but we have room to grow, right?
And then the next question is for you as well. You mentioned the economic impact of art and culture in Greater Peoria. Could you elaborate a little bit more how that investment translates into into broader community benefits like job creation and tourism?
Yeah, so that's a really, it's huge, actually. As I mentioned, it's a $9.4 million impact here in the Greater Peoria region. When folks come to Peoria or to any of our surrounding communities, we did this study, as I mentioned, Arts and Economic Prosperity Report back in 2022. We found that when people come in here, they spend money on a ticket. Maybe they're going to go to the Civic Center, maybe they want to go to the Peoria Riverfront Museum. When they come here, they spend an additional, per person, $45 because they're going out to eat, right? Or they're staying at a hotel. So this is a really big deal for our region. Peoria has a long arts and culture history dating back to, back into, of course, the vaudeville days, right? So this would have a major impact. We're talking all of the things that you enjoy doing. Going to the farmer's market, going to the museum, going to Peoria Players, seeing a play there. And I'll just finish here. I want to shout out the Fine Art Fair that takes place, the Riverfront, in September. This year it's really exciting. So normally they draw about 8,000 to 10,000 folks down to the Peoria Riverfront. This year it's happening the same weekend that the Titanic exhibit is opening at the Peoria Riverfront Museum, and when the Peoria Symphony Orchestra is having their Titanic in concert. They're going to show the film and then perform the music. And so they're banding together to pull in even more people. It's a whole weekend of the arts that you can enjoy. So that's the impact that the arts have here locally. It's in September. I'm so sorry. Thank you, Rob.
Okay. And then Wayne, you get a couple more for you. Regarding food insecurity, do the proposed cuts impact senior programs such as Meals on Wheels?
I cannot say directly, because I'm not quite sure where Meals from Wheels funding comes from. But indirectly, yes. I didn't talk about it earlier, but who really benefits from SNAP, some of these other programs we mentioned, but individuals living on a fixed income are disproportionately affected. Seniors on one end and children on the other end. So the short answer is absolutely.
Okay. Next question for you as well. How much in funding does the food bank get from the federal government, roughly?
I would say roughly 30% of our funding comes from what we call the Temporary Emergency Food program. And that is quite a bit, quite a bit, and it's very substantial. You know, we not only directly food, they also bring in financial assets to help us with some administrative costs, buy new equipment, and at the same time, fresh produce that we distribute out throughout the 3 counties that we serve, and that is a very, very impactful piece of what we do receive.
And some of the local programs, such as there's some groups that grow food, you know, they have gardens, and down at Treewind, there's a program.
Yeah. Well, several years ago, the Community Foundation of Central Illinois got together and brought in quite a few groups to help with the emergency food system because it was so siloed and separated. But they brought a bunch of folks in, which included the hospitals, it included the health departments from the 3 counties, it included many of the pantries. University of Illinois Extension, University of Illinois College of Medicine, to help with the nutrition pieces. And when these groups came together, we really did make an impact on the services that we provide, the getting more nutrition in the systems, you know, labeling of our foods, and also we're just, you know, trying to get into the food as medicine piece, which is very complicated and complex.
Thank you. Kathy, there's the next questions for you. Can you estimate the number of people that will negatively be affected? And I'm assuming this is the Save the Vote Act.
I'm going to grab my notes because I don't want to estimate. Give me just a moment. Yeah, there are some 9 million voters in Illinois, so I'm just going to go through a few details with you. 3 million of those are women that we've estimated to have a name change, so that gives you at least a starting point. About 900,000 people in the last census from a year or two ago relocated. So those are all individuals who would then need to be re-registering. You have to imagine that a similar number might relocate in an average year. 20% of Americans, so I'm going to extrapolate that and say probably about 20% of the people that live in Illinois earn less than $35,000 a year. And at $30,000, a family of 4 is considered in poverty. So these are going to be a lot of the same folks that Wayne has been talking about and others, individuals for whom $100 in family expense to get some documents, or worse, to take time off of work, these would be people very, very heavily impacted by that. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a picture.
Can you also address, and could be for any of the speakers, but grants depend on in-kind dollars or support. Can you address what that means to your organization today?
In kind? Mm-hmm. Our organization is run, the League of Women Voters, is run, I think about 95% of what we do is all volunteer work. I'm a volunteer, you know, Connie's a volunteer, Laurie's a volunteer, right? When we do these kind of events, when we do voter registration drives, when we organize Get Out the Vote, it's on our time, and to be honest with you, as many of us know, our dime. So we do a fair amount of that, and I think that many nonprofit organizations that are represented here will tell you that they depend very heavily on the goodwill of people to volunteer and provide those services.
Thank you. Yeah. And
the Immigration Project uses a lot of volunteers, and they used to have 4 or 5 immigration attorneys that did all the legal work, and then they saved money by getting some, what they call DOJ's, Department of Justice, but they're kind of like paralegals for immigration legal stuff, so we don't have to pay them as much because they're not actual attorneys. There's also just tons of volunteers, and their monies are almost all, a great deal of them are grants. and that includes state money. So we are very, very grateful for the state money. We also go look for donations. We're trying to up that donations. However, we recently just lost a $1 million grant from the federal government to represent unaccompanied minors. These are children that have nobody to represent them in court, and they don't do very well. They tend not to because they cannot prove much of anything. So that was a huge kick to have that happen for us. Yeah. No, the $1 million grant was a federal grant. Yeah, the rest of it is other large organizations, foundations, and state money, and then some local money as well.
Thank you, Laurie. And Becky? And then I
Yeah,
have a
just
couple
real quick
questions for you, too.
about the grant money. Right now, WCBU has a reporter who is part-time but is fully funded through a grant. And grants are not easy to get. There are a lot of loopholes that, or not loopholes, there's a lot of hoops that need to be jumped through and those kinds of things. So, and they're not easy to keep either. A lot of times the grant money will run out and then the organization is expected to fund whatever that is moving forward. But it is very important, and we wouldn't have Steve Stein right now, and he is concentrating on underserved areas, rural areas, more in Woodford and Tazewell County, and getting those stories out. So just wanted to mention.
And Becky, one more comment, question for you specifically. Given the ever-increasing media landscape, why is public media still relevant?
Well, I mean, I think that one of the things it kind of seems like a contradiction, but we've gotten away from, in media and in journalism overall, of just the facts kind of journalism, reporting on what happened and not commenting on it all the time. So we see that at the national level all the time, where it's one small story, but then just the continuous analysis of it. But we do need good analysis and discussion about these topics, and not just one voice all the time shouting something in a certain way. So I think public media brings that out, is always, and again, not 100% always successful, but in trying to bring both sides of an issue to the table. One quick thing too, just in my 15 seconds, I will piggyback on what others have said about the importance of contacting your local Illinois legislators. Dave Kaler is working on some legislation here in Illinois to help protect public media. So it's very important that you also reach out if it's important to you too.
Thank you. And may Dr. Gilliland Wright, Dr. Gilliland Wright. Okay, so this is our last question. Just focusing on the Arts Museum funding, assisting in history and general education, all that funding, how important is that to our area?
So the question is, how important is it to,
Fund the arts and the museums
Oh, well,
and the libraries.
yeah, well, think about it, especially, how many of you have a library card? Yep, that's your answer right there, right? If you don't have that, then those services, I know we keep saying this is really going to have a huge impact on rural and underserved areas, but I hate to say it again, but it will. It just will. I talked about Morton, and I was, chatting with someone from Peoria Public Library, and, where these other libraries are getting their books, when they're trying to get those resources, where is that coming from? It's coming from Peoria. So we may still have those books available to us, but those other communities, they won't. And think about the impact that the arts, that the humanities have if growing up reading a book. We know from studies that if a child is involved in the arts, they're more likely to excel in STEM fields. It's just a fact. And so when we lose that, especially during those early years, that's just gone, right? So it's really important for us to protect that. Hope that answered the question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Laurie has one more comment.
I just
And
want to
then we'll
make a
close.
plea to all of you, and every one of the organizations that each of the speakers represents is super important. And I highly, highly urge you, first of all, to donate money if you have it, any money you have, to go to rallies. And, you know, if each of us made a phone call or two every single Friday morning or Monday morning or whatever, on any one of these issues, rotate them, okay? Because there are so much that we need to encourage our representatives. And even if they are doing what we want them to do, they need to be thanked and to know that we get it and we appreciate it. And if they're not, even though we know sometimes it doesn't seem to help, but it has to happen anyway. They have to keep hearing from us.
Thank you. Well, as part of the closing, I just want to recap some of the action steps that all of us can take. And we've heard several times, but urge your senators to reject the SAVE Act. Give them a call. Hound them. If you don't know the phone number for the U.S. Capitol switchboard, it's 202-224-3132. 202-224-3121. And we'll post that on our website as well. Add your name to the demand for equal rights. How long has that been hanging out there, ladies? Urge your members of Congress to stand up for democracy, provide oversight for actions in D.C. Call them, call them, call them. Fact check. Check out disinformation and authoritarian rhetoric is very prominent right now. Public perception, it erodes our confidence in our democratic institutions. So there's ways to fact check what you're reading. Call banks. We've heard several people. There's a copy of the 5 Calls app out on the table if you didn't get one on the way in. You can sign up for national call banks and local call banks. I get a lot of email on that, where you pick a day, you call people outside your neighborhood. And use the power of your wallet or your purse, and boycott businesses that do not support diversity, equity, and inclusion. And there's a handout on that out in the lobby. Attend meetings to promote issues that impact you. Join member organizations that promote causes you support, and volunteer. Volunteer for a candidate. We're going to be having some offices open. I believe we're going to have a Senate seat open here. So we need to get out and help those people. That volunteer work is very important. Attend rallies like this to make your voice heard. Democracy is not just a system of government, it's the power of the people. It begins with us, our voices, and our votes. At a time when democracy is under threat, we're asking you to come together to defend it. So please, please be active. Take this and go out and spread the word. Thanks to everyone who's here today, especially to our speakers, to you, to the members of the church, and to the volunteers from the League, and especially to Eileen Steed, who has been so important in organizing this. Oh, yes. Thank you. There is a jar for a free will offering for the church. If you got $1 or $2 to throw into it, I know that they would appreciate that. And we will be asking our speakers to send to me or to Eileen, probably to Eileen, the web links that you might have mentioned in your talks, or if there were any phone numbers, so that we can get those on the website for people as well. Thank you so much for being here today.